Well, thank you. It's so wonderful. I see some faces that I recognize. I see some brand new faces. I see some colorful faces and personalities. This is going to be really fun. So today we're gathering as a composite group. And then as I'll be sharing, we're going to split you into genres over the next couple of days so that we can dig down, really crystallize your message, what genre is going to work best for you, how best to really get that jump start on your book, because there's a lot to do and it's so glorious. I love to help cut people's learning curves so that you don't have to spin your wheels as you're navigating these waters, as our host so nicely said. So if you check in the chat, I actually have a beautiful full color, editable, downloadable workbook for you. And so I would like for you to be able to see that. You can pull it up on your screen to be able to write. You can print it off if you want and just write on it or take notes as you go and then go back to this document. You're not going to be graded on it. It's just something we wanted to be able to provide for you. So I'm going to I needed to make sure that you got that and have it completely out of the way. And then we're going to begin. Okay. Can everyone see the screen? Can you see the PowerPoint? Okay, let's go. So thank you, Linda, for that incredible introduction. Super happy to have you all on the call. We say 3-day virtual event because literally you can come to all 3 days. But as we get started and you move into, am I doing a do-it-yourself help book? Am I going to do a memoir or an autobiography? Then I would like you to think, if you only have a little bit of time this week, absolutely join the session that is going to best start, work for you. And I'm just going to move you guys over here. Okay, I did want to tell you that I have attended some of the best leadership and storytelling training on the planet. And I love training that actually helps you to grow, that assists you to recognize more of who you are and more of what your gifts are, and to help you overcome things that may have seemed like they got you down or were an issue for you. And yet, oftentimes when we really take a look at ourselves, we see that even in the foibles and the stumbles and the failures and in the darkness lies the seeds of our greatest glory. So we're going to be getting into that because this is for self-help and for memoir. And so obviously this is nonfiction. And I will tell you, I've worked with some of the most extraordinary people on the planet, and you can't make this stuff up. Like when you get to the beautiful bits of you, you begin to like yourself more, understand yourself more, gain a greater voice and a greater power in your family, in your community, and also out into the world. So writing a book, I have found, especially for leaders, to be one of the most profound experiences that you will ever have. And I'm excited that you have an opportunity to get going. I have a tendency to be a little bit of a fire hose because I love to share. So Linda is recording this and we'll make sure that we get you taken care of. The issue that I have seen though too is I know some people who have spent a year writing their book, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I had one client come to me 40 years trying to write a book. And that to me is anguishing. And my whole premise is, okay, let's get down to the most important elements of story. And then how does that apply to your story? And where can you give the greatest benefit? Sometimes it's when a principle is wrapped in story. And sometimes it's when you lay principles out and then use story to illustrate it even further. So what's beautiful is that a reader says, wow, if she can do this, if he can do this, I can do it too. And that's the fundamental, most important thing about nonfiction. And when I see someone struggling for 27 years or 42 years to write a book, I'm like, let's get to it. So we're here to remedy that. And what I want to share with you is I am not so academic in my storytelling. I came across this in an unusual way. And what I love to get to is to the powerful guidance that you deserve in a shorter period of time, as I mentioned. But also, sometimes you might get into a course and they're like, write your book in 30 days, but you don't have the opportunity to unleash your creativity. So we're going to be working with both left side of the brain and right side of the brain. We're going to make sure that you're organized and your readers can follow your journey, but also those unique things about you that make you you are going to get absolutely exposed in such a brilliant manner that people feel like they can know you, like you, trust you. And what you're developing is not just readers, you're developing a movement. People who want to follow you, want to walk with you, want to do extraordinary things in the world with you. So what is it going to take to write a book with great impact? Well, it takes a working vehicle, okay? And so the next couple of days are absolutely designed for you to have a working mindset. Today, we're going to work a lot on mindset of the storyteller, of an author versus a writer. Writers can write for 40 years. You are becoming an author. Okay, so we're going to take you on a beautiful journey. I do have to tell you, I don't like to talk about myself very much, but I am constantly seeing how important it is for authors like you to speak about themselves. So I'm just going to share a tiny little bit. I didn't start off to be a New York Times or Wall Street Journal bestselling author. I started out as a lover of stories. And I was a voracious reader from the time I was really little. When I was in my early 20s, I had a near-death experience. So I was in the hospital and I'm listening to nurses out in the corridor and they said, she's not going to make it until morning. Well, that night, I was given a second chance at life. And I was told that one of the medications they were giving me was killing me. I was told that I had this brand new ability to go out into the world. And I was given a gift to see people for who they really are. Not always the games they play in life. We all do. I do. But for who they really are. And I also, this natural gift of storytelling seemed to come to the forefront. And so what's been beautiful about it, as I have written some very unusual stories, stories of transformation. So people who have walked through the literal depths of hell, but have come out on the other side, and now they are extraordinary leaders, extraordinary transformational leaders who can not only walk their talk, but they're doing amazing things. I have producers, I have women in film, I have leaders and speakers, national speakers. And so it's been this beautiful, beautiful ride. That near-death experience caused me to change my story. I've been telling my story, a certain story, all my life until that moment. And after that moment, my story changed. But I was able to work with skinheads, families of serial killers, cultists. But no matter where I turn, I now work with also producers, actors, actresses, people from these extraordinary walks of life. And I see patterns that I'm going to be exposing to you so you can tell your best story in a shorter period of time. But I just got to tell you, after I had that experience, I was hooked. When I could look into anyone's eyes and see this massive beauty and potential. And now I get to do this with authors from around the world. But what's going to be the most beautiful thing is for you to see the potential inside of you. I have 70 and 80-year-olds who come to my inspired writers retreats and they're like, I like me better now. I understand me better now. That's what I would love for you. So as I mentioned in the Zoom, we have a beautiful full color workbook. So if you go into the chat, you should be able to download that. We're going to get right into business. So you're going to see that we're going to start with a couple of important steps, okay? And so as we get into it, I just want you to be thinking of, if I am an author, if I'm going to place that beautiful expectation upon myself in a compassionate way, because we're all busy, but also in this, I'm excited, I'm committed to do this. You begin to see life in a different way. If any of you have ever, and I'm sure most of you have, a situation where you got to be the boss, or you came into a situation and you were able to rise up in the corporate ladder, and you began to see yourself as a leader. Well, what happens in storytelling and book writing is that you become immediately a leader in the eyes of many, many people around you. One of the reasons is 9 out of 10 Americans want to write a book, less than 2% get it done. And the statistics change in different places of the world. We have some authors that are on here, Kathy DeMarcos and others, who have already written books, and they're amazing, but they will also tell you that books open doors. Being an author will open doors, but it's time for you to think of yourself as a published author. So, of course, we want to have a vehicle that's going to work, right? And so one of the things I want you to know is that I don't have all the answers, but I have spent a lot of time making sure that I have a vehicle that's actually going to work. And in your own mind, you need to have a vehicle that's going to work for you too, because this is one of those journeys that requires more extraordinary courage than just about anything else. I will also tell you that the people that I've worked with that have gone through these exceptional steps as you're doing, they say it's worth more than all the therapy they've ever done, and more than all the personal and self-help and professional development they've ever done, because they came to know themselves and their gifts, which is great. So I like really, really deep dives. And we're going to hit some things very quickly as we're moving forward. And as I said, mindset. So I'm going to breeze past this for a minute, because we're going to hit that at the very end of class, just to make sure that you're hitting the right class next. Abraham Lincoln said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening that axe. So this is what we're going to do. I believe in roadmaps. And I call maps massive action plans. So in your workbook, you're going to see all kinds of things where you're going to be able to write notes. And I also want you to think about your book being an adventure in which you are going to have your own GPS, your own guidance system. Okay. As we do this, I want you to realize, or invite you to realize, that what everyone is looking for on the planet is to be significant in some way. When we write a book, 2 things happen. Number 1 is we become more significant to ourselves, because we recognize that we do have something to say. That's why you're all here. This is what you're doing in your best aspect of storytelling, is finding out how you became significant. And usually it's a significant overcoming of something. And in that significant overcoming of something, you give permission for a reader to go on a journey with you, and to be able to see how they can become significant in themselves, overcome a problem, discover there's more to them than they ever thought possible. Because when you get right down to it, every single person's ego on the planet tells them that they're not enough. It's a lie, but when you get right down to it, it's exactly what every person struggles with. I've worked with kings and princes. I've worked with CEOs of large banks. I've worked with producers and actors and actresses. Doesn't matter who we are in life, we still have that little niggling voice that says, you are not enough. When you work on your book, you begin to see how you became enough and became enough and became enough to get you through rises and falls. And that is where you become the lived expert. So you don't have to have a doctorate in 15 different degrees. You don't have to be the CEO of the largest corporation on the planet. If you do, great. But you do not have to have those to have significant impact on someone else's life. Well, how do we do that? Oprah says, the key to realizing a dream is to focus not on success, but significance. And then even the small steps. and the little victories along your path will take on greater meaning. I want you to think about these questions, and we have this in your workbook. I've wanted to write a book since I really truly got serious about it when I know I have something significant to say because I'm willing to make this investment of my time to explore my creativity because, and a big clincher, the person I most want to reach with this book is, okay? And keep in mind, that's not cajole or control or manipulate. It's who will benefit most if I write this book. So I'm going to give you just a minute to write down a couple of these answers. A little quick scratch is going to go places, okay? So 1 minute to write down your answers. Sometimes people get started on a book without asking some of the most basic fundamental questions. Sometimes we just like to write. Sometimes we have something important to write when we're figuring it out for ourselves. Sometimes we are assigned something at work, or we have to put some content together because people are asking for it. Probably all of you have had someone at one point in time or another that says, you should write a book. And that might be another reason why you're here. So there's a difference in having something that is going to benefit you and something that's going to benefit another person. The beautiful thing about writing a book is that you have that happen in one fell swoop. It takes time. But the first time you write a book, you're figuring out what it is you're writing. You're figuring out what it is that you have to say. And you find out many things inside yourself about yourself. And then when you go to do a beautiful rewrite, that's when you're going to direct your book, your message directly to this person that you most want to reach, this person that is most going to benefit. And I will tell you, miracles happen when you're willing to do that, because we want everybody to buy our book. But when we do the work to actually reach one person and can have this intimate conversation with them, that's when all the other voices, our boss, Aunt Marge, Grandma and Grandpa, our kids, all of those voices go away and our message becomes more clear. And so star that one, the person that I want to reach the most with this book, because that will serve you. I also want to talk to you about the fact that powerful, effective, inspirational, and transformational nonfiction requires courage. You've probably seen there's this wonderful woman named Brené Brown that does a lot of work on vulnerability. And there is a lot of work to be done in vulnerability, because people, when they're looking for someone to follow or to emulate or to learn from, they often don't want gurus. They want someone that they can relate with. And so it is the rises and the falls that people are looking for. And it means it requires an extraordinary amount of vulnerability. The ability for you to let your walls down and to let people have a peek inside some of the messiest places inside of you and in your world, so that we can understand how you came to overcome some of those messes. And in doing so, I would love for you to write this down. Every villain has redeeming qualities. There's a reason you fell in love with your ex. There's a reason someone became a school teacher. There's a reason for all of these villains that are out there, which could be cancer, divorce, all kinds of things. But every villain has redeeming qualities. And then there's this. Every hero or shero has fatal flaws. And the fatal flaws are also going to be important for effective nonfiction. This is why it requires courage. And this is why the mindset is so important. Anybody could write a book in 30 days. You can educate, motivate, inspire, but if you would like to transform your reader, it means that you're willing to go to the depth of courage, of that deepest vulnerability. And that is where you're going to find amazing strengths even within yourself. Soren Kierkegaard said, to dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. To not dare is to lose oneself. I love that quote. I think it speaks very highly of this adventure that you're on, which is great. But here's the thing. We're on to step 5 in your workbook. So I just want to make sure. I told you I move fast. You are going to have some roadblocks that are going to be really important to be overcoming. And some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not afraid. The last thing I need to do is some fear releasing exercise. But I am going to tell you this. If you've never experienced a fear or a thrill of fear, you're probably not in the right class, because you probably won't have something to share. Most humans on the planet have been through some things, and part of your guiding principle of life is probably to be able to lead and to help others to walk either beside you or for you to blaze a path that no one has ever been. If you're not afraid at all, I'm just going to invite you to dig a little deeper, because you will benefit yourself if you do this exercise that we're about to do, so that you don't sit down to a blank piece of paper or a blank computer and your unconscious mind is keeping you from your greatest work. This happens more often than what most people recognize, and part of it is because you've never done a fear-releasing exercise. So I'm going to share with you, I'm going to just pull up the workbook from that same link as what you had. Has everybody been able to pull it up? Can I see any yeses? Were you able to see that PDF that's in there and pull that up? It's in the chat. If you haven't, here's what I'm going to ask. If you will put your email in the chat and just say need workbook, then we'll make sure that you're able to receive that. Okay. I'm going to pull this up. We're all having fun with this brand new technology, which makes it really fun. So, okay. So what I want you to see, you have this fear exercise that will be in your workbook. And as you see, you can type in here if you would like. So on a piece of paper, or if you've got this up and you're putting things into it, I want you to think about your deepest fears in writing a book. I'll tell you what a lot of people have. I don't really have something to say. I'm afraid no one's going to read it. I'm afraid it's not going to be powerful enough. It's so sacred, and I don't know how to put that on paper. I'm worried that I might be throwing somebody under the bus. I damn well want to throw somebody under the bus. I don't know if I'll get sued. There's all kinds of fears. So I'm going to ask you to write down at least 3 fears right now. Worst fears that you can think about. And then I want you to ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? And just to that point. So 3 fears, and what is the worst thing that you could imagine could happen? I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this exercise. Go ahead. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to share with you that each of you have at least one core legacy story, at least one core legacy book that will touch someone halfway around the world, and 50 years from now, you will still be extremely proud of it. And you won't have boxes sitting in your garage. I promise, because you'll let yourself go to that depth. So these are all really good. And Raven's my assistant. Will you wave at everyone? Raven's going to take down Lisa and Kathy and Linda. And she's going to ask you if you would please put your emails in the chat for her. And the reason is leaders take risks. And 3 of you immediately put your hands up, and we'll have some more as time goes on, but I'm going to have a special gift for the leaders who were willing to be vulnerable and share their fears. Way to go. I am so proud of you. Okay, wonderful. Let's go and get down to business. What I would love to say, ladies and gentlemen, if you go back and fill these out, You're going to find that you have natural fears and that you will not die. And all of a sudden, like each of these three, you're going to find solutions that come to you. Okay, well, that is a real fear. It's the unaddressed fears that keep us stuck. And that's what I see over and over. But I see the moment that you choose to address them, then wonderful things begin to happen. I have a woman I'm assisting with a book right now. She was kidnapped from Norway when she was a child, and her father took her underground into all of these ultra Orthodox communities around the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and she became a schnorrer, which is essentially a beggar with blessings. So she was a beggar for her entire life. As a child, she found herself on a milk carton at age 12, her own picture. She was in a stranger's house, someone who was being loving, having a bowl of cereal, and on the milk carton, she saw her own face and her own name. That's just the beginning of an extraordinary story. But we were working together on her timeline just a few weeks ago, and she's like, I just realized how strong I am. And she named off 3 stories right in a row that she had neglected or hadn't put down or hadn't thought about or hadn't given herself credit for. And they were all related and they were all going in her book. And it made me cry, but it made her dance with joy. So again, the understanding better, okay? And then I'd like to share with you too, Steven Pressfield, he is an amazing author and he's had ups and downs, and he wrote an exceptional book called The War of Art, not the art of war, the war of art. And he says this: if you find yourself asking yourself and your friends, am I really an author? Am I really an artist? Chances are you are. The counterfeit innovator is wildly self-confident. The real one is scared to death. So if you had some valid fears that you were writing down, kudos. Means that you're breathing and alive and you're not overconfident. You're going to be absolutely perfect. I will tell you that also the deeper into your fear and your vulnerability you go, the question becomes, are you going to allow yourself this willingness to risk being a leader in this very emotional vulnerability? Are you going to allow that? The greater the risk, the greater the reward. So you may have heard this, like 0 risk, then you have 0 awakening. Medium risk, a medium awakening. Great risk, a great awakening, a great new beginning, a great wonder that you see within yourself. And so thank you for doing that fear setting exercise. And I would invite you to keep that one on your desk whenever you're getting ready to do something else that scares you, so that you face it and you have the power to move beyond it quickly. All right. Steven Pressfield also said this: this is the other secret that real artists know and wannabe writers don't. When we sit down each day, this is butts in the seat, ladies and gentlemen, we do our work. Power concentrates around us. The muse takes note of our dedication. She approves. We have earned favor in her sight. When we sit down and work, we become like a magnetized rod that attracts iron filings. Ideas come, insights accrete. If you have this dream that you can do it, then just begin it, because this is where all the power and the magic and everything happens. You also deserve to have a vision, okay? Seeing yourself as a published author is important, but it is the sitting down and also, what do I wish to create with this book? What is my ultimate intention? We talked about significance. Some people just want to write a book because they want to get rich. Most people don't get rich from writing a book. I'm going to just be honest with you. The average book sells between 250 and 500 books. With the advent of Amazon, this number is rising because books are now evergreen. It also means that you have an opportunity for something greater, greater exposure and greater long term, because your book will be out there, and we have this beautiful thing called print on demand. So whether you're traditional publishing or self-publishing, that people have access if you make certain wise decisions in your visibility and being able to get your book out there. If your only premise is to get wealthy, there's probably better ways to do this. I will say this: books open doors. Books open doors to wealth, to people. You will break bread with the most magnificent people. You'll have an opportunity to travel, to get paid to speak quite often, because people see that, oh, he's an author, she's an author. And if you have a message that resonates, and you're doing it on a topic that people need, then great things are able to happen. The better book you write with a purpose and a vision, this is where I've seen the most miracles happen. People are like, wow, your books have been Oprah, Dr. Phil, CNN, Good Morning America. Do you know why? Because we wrote it to that one person. We wrote it to benefit someone who's trying to crawl out of a hole so that they can see the blue sky. We write it to serve and to uplift and to protect and to warn and to inspire and motivate in such incredible ways. So this sitting your butt down in the chair and then having this vision is going to be really vital for you. I also want to share with you this. I have some authors who think, okay, I want the muse to hit, I want the stars to align, and I just want to download my book. Have a really wonderful friend who's an author, and he is best friends with a New York Times bestselling author who's really prolific. And he said this: I sit down when the stars are all aligned and everything's going, and I download work on my book. And I'm so excited because that was so easy. And the next day I sit at my computer and I grovel and I crawl and I am trying to get something onto paper until it's on there. Days later, I look at what the result is and it's the same. So I sit my butt in that chair every single day and I write. So here's your visualization. Action at the desk, the stars align. Action at the desk, sometimes the stars don't align, but still sitting at the desk, you make it happen. Okay. All right. You have some fun things in your workbook too, where you can just put down discoveries if you find something that works for you. All right. This commitment to the course is where I see authors either rise or fail. When you have decided that instead of just being a writer, that you will be an author, like the three who raised their hands and took a risk, that you say, I'm committed to my growth no matter what. If you make a commitment, you allow this to be a compass for you, because two things happen. Number one is that you have this beautiful reticular activating system in your brain, and it says it must be so. So if you say, I am a published author, your brain gets moving to make sure that this is true and that you're telling the truth and that this comes true for you. So all of a sudden you're going to see people and opportunities, and all of these resources will begin to accrete around you. We've had several times where people write at our Inspired Writers Retreats. They'll write a tweet or a Facebook post or an IG and say, I'm at a writer's retreat, I'm working on my book. One woman had 3 invitations to speak before she left the retreat for the weekend, because people wanted to hear what she had to say. And knowing that she was writing a book added that extra ounce of credibility. So commit. Whether you're committing because this is a hobby and you're enjoying it, but you're still going to be published, or commit that you are going to be a world changer in the message that you have to share, but commit to it and then reveal it. So I'm going to ask you to write this down. Please give yourself a challenge. Who is one person that you are going to share today that you are a published author with a mighty message, and that you are committed to get this book done within, say, a year. Some of you are really busy, so that might need to be a year and a half. Some of you can devote full time. So maybe you'll have this book done in 6 or 8 months. So whatever that is, but one person, and you're going to make the phone call, you're going to use your voice, you're going to say it out loud, you're going to commit to it, and write a date upon the calendar, okay, that both of you can see. Something happens when you say that thing out loud, and it's another place where your brain says, okay, I'm actually doing more than just a hobby. I'm doing this for something great. So Goethe said, as soon as you trust yourself, you will know how to live. That's going to be fun. All right, I have a GPS story for you, okay? There was a young boy, his name was Gary. I'm going to show a picture of him here. His parents were killed in a murder-suicide. So his stepfather to the right took his and his mother's lives, okay? Gary was in Mannheim, Germany when that happened, and the US Army shipped him back to the States into the loving arms of his father. But what nobody knew is that he was entering this torture chamber of abuse. He had an older stepbrother. And so he went from frying pan into the fire, and no one knew. And you look at this little boy and his beautiful little eyes, and you think of somebody trying to hurt him. Well, as he grew, Gary had some choices to make. He could either become very bitter or he could become better. And what he discovered was that his art and his faith actually saved his life. So this is his father that he came back to. And this is him giving lots of love to both his mother and his stepfather, whom he learned to forgive. So Gary actually, through his art, placed himself in the position to be able to fulfill Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl's dream, to build a statue, a monument, a statue of responsibility on the West Coast to bookend the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast, because as Gary learned as a little boy, and as Viktor Frankl learned in the concentration camps, that you cannot have freedom without responsibility. Liberty is not possible without responsibility. So you will see in your lifetime a statue, I get all emotional, a statue of responsibility on the West Coast. And it's going to affect millions of lives. 5 years ago, Gary did not have a book. He did not have a voice. He did not have a way to tell all of the nuances of his story. His book is coming out in May, and he already has producers looking at it to see if it would be movie worthy. So we are just so excited. What is your alignment? Where is it that what you have been through is going to create your greatest good? The Japanese have this amazing compass. It's called Ikigai. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but I love it, this concept. Ikigai actually means your reason for breathing. Your reason for breathing. So every author should have a why about life itself, and then also, why are you writing this book? What is your reason for breathing, and how can you actually infuse that into your book? So I want you to think about what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And don't allow yourself to go off track, because this is what happens. If you decide you're going to hang out in one of these 4 quadrants instead of being right on center, you're going to find that you have satisfaction, but feelings of uselessness, right? Delight and fullness, but not wealth, because you're hanging out in these 3 and not what you can be paid for. You have excitement and gratification, but a sense of uncertainty, or you're comfortable, but feelings of emptiness. I would imagine that Linda sees many of these where people will operate in 1, 2, or 3 of these quadrants, but they don't give themselves permission to operate in their zone of genius or their ikigai. I'm inviting you to do a reset. as you're working on your book and your story, to get clear on all of these essences of what your passion and your purpose is, that you may infuse it into your book, and that also your book can be a launch pad for your greatest life. If you're doing these things, what you love and what the world needs, you know that some great things are already going to happen because you're going to be passionate about it. If you add what you can be paid for, you can reach many, many, many more people because you're not worried about how you're going to pay the rent and how you're going to put food on the table for your kids or your grandkids, right? It's you're getting it. And then here's the thing that often gets authors. What if my writing isn't good enough? So I'm going to tell you one thing. You have content. Every one of you that are on this call has content, and content is king. Everything else is editable. So you can find deep dive editors like I do that help you to bring out your greatest story. You find those who know how to write and to spell, and you get those who can, every I is dotted, every T is crossed. Ladies and gentlemen, everything else is editable. What you are good at is what you have been living. And that is what makes it most extraordinary. Okay. We're going to have to wrap up. I told you I have a lot of stuff that I want to share. So to remind you about tomorrow. So I'm going to flip through a couple things, and I'll also make sure you have some things in your workbook, like how many words should I use?
Sorry.
And so that's going to be fun. I do want to share with you, you have homework for tonight, okay? So it's called the conflict character arc. I'm going to ask you to look for it in your workbook and to just recognize that you as a character, you have a goal, and then there is a lie that gets in your way, or a series of lies, and it creates conflict. So every time you're trying to reach your goal, it hits up against something. That's all of your falls that you might have in your rises and falls, okay? And that continues to happen till you learn the truth. So if you will do that homework, we're going to start really powerfully over the next couple of days, okay? And I just want to share with you, tomorrow we're doing self-help and do-it-yourself. So there's a lot of step by step by step by step. And then the third day is memoirs and autobiographies. And I'll help you differentiate genres in each of these. And so you just got to think of, first, am I going to have a list of principles and I'm going to tell some stories that illustrate that? Or am I going to be talking about my story? Am I really going to be sharing nuts and bolts of my story? And I'll teach principles in that, but it's all going to be wrapped in story. So I invite you to go to the session that serves you best. So it's going to be 90 minutes each time. And so tomorrow is the self-help or do-it-yourself. And then on Friday is the memoirs and autobiographies. You are welcome to join us for both. But if you only have time for one, I'm going to invite you to think about that legacy story of yours, that legacy. Is it best in a do-it-yourself, or is it best in a memoir autobiography? And that's what we have for you. The rest of it we can go through over the next couple of days. And thank you for being patient with our technology. And as we were getting everything going today, can I just tell you how wonderful it is to see all your faces and to know that you're working on something that is going to have dramatic impact for the world. I really appreciate it. Okay, Linda, is there anything else that that we need to tell them? They're going to have the same link for tomorrow, correct? She might have had to have popped off because sometimes
Linda had to leave, and it is the same link for tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Raven. So same link for tomorrow. I think we've got the technology figured out. We'll start right on time. We'll move right into things. And if there was anything that I felt was worthy that you missed, I'll make sure that we hit that pretty quickly in the next 2 sessions. So we'll be good. All right, everyone. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Nice to see you all.